You're muted, Tracy, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar of the Circular Economy Knowledge webinar series. Today's workshop, so my name is Tracy. I will be the housekeeper of this workshop. I will ask you all to please switch off your mic, and it's a very interactive session, so I'd like you to ask all your questions and in the chat. We will have a time for Q&A and chat at the end, and we will start our meeting with a presentation. During today's webinar, we have a lot of speakers and facilitators. We have Zinaida Fadiva, team leader of Switch Asia, Sarah Gabi, communication and partnership of Switch Asia, Cenguj Kalvi, senior knowledge management at Green Growth Knowledge Partnership, Hannes McNulty, manager of the Green Industry Platform.
Tracy, you're muted.
Before, as I mentioned before, today's agenda, the first part of the agenda is gonna be a presentation just to explain you what is the knowledge circular economy knowledge taxonomy, and then we will open the discussion for your feedback. Before I start, I would like to ask Zinaida if you can tell us in few words what is Switch Asia.
Well, thank you, Tracy, and good time of day, everybody. We know that you are connecting from various parts of the world. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today. We know that you are the key figures in the area of knowledge curation and exchange when it comes to circular economy across different regions of the world. As many of you already know, Switch Asia has been at the forefront of promoting sustainable practices along the supply chains in Asia and across Asia and Europe since its inception in 2007. And it has been done through grant projects and through policy work on request of different governments and regional organizations. Over the years, and since that seminal year of 2007, we have evolved significantly, adapting our strategies to meet the changing needs of the region we serve, and this is Asia and now Asia and the Pacific. Our work has inspired various sustainable consumption and production practices through grant projects, and in the last years we have been increasingly focusing not only on sustainable consumption and production but also on the circular economy, also through our policy components. And it's been in light of also response to the EU Green Deal, but also on the trends and developments in the region. Switch Asia's mission extends beyond developing practices. We are already deeply invested in the communication and dissemination of knowledge related to the circular economy, and this is why we are keen and are partnering with the Global Green Growth Institute and Global Green Growth Knowledge Platform, partners for this webinar here today. And together we aim to facilitate knowledge development and communication strategies that will advance the circular economy across different sectors and the regions. Our work in the area of circular economy also means that beyond discussing taxonomy, which is of course the primary focus today, we are eager to work closely with all of you on the content itself. And as we embark on this journey, we want to focus on what and how we communicate the circular economy. And it's essential to have the information meets end user requirements and that it is communicated effectively to all user groups. So let us take this opportunity to share, to learn, to collaborate, and thank you for being with us and look forward to active discussion. Now, perhaps it's a good time to turn the mic and the floor to Hannes McNulty, manager of Green Growth Knowledge Platform, our partner, leader of the group, which is working on this important development. Hannes, over to you.
Thank you very much, Zenaida, and welcome to everybody here. It's great to see so many people joining us today on what's a really interesting and quite challenging topic. So yes, I'm Hannes McNulty, and I'm with the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership. I have a focus on leading knowledge management and industry work within GGKP. For those that many of you probably actually don't even know really what GGKP, the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership, does. And just to give you a quick explanation, we are essentially a knowledge broker for everything to do with the green and circular economy. What this means is we try to understand who is producing what knowledge on the green and circular economy and who needs this knowledge, and essentially match two together, really acting as a knowledge broker. And this is a very, very complicated task because obviously there's a huge amount of great work being done on the green and circular economy. And there are many, many, many different types of people out there, whether they are SMEs or policymakers, or farmers or NGOs. Everybody needs to be able to use and apply this knowledge. So it's quite a challenge to match all of this up. And as part of this work, and now with Switch Asia, this idea of developing a circular economy knowledge taxonomy, it'll be a big help to us going forward to be able to manage all of this green and circular economy knowledge more effectively, and to enable, one, a better exchange of experience between people working on the topic, as well as making knowledge more easily transferable between projects, between organizations, and making it more accessible. Now, we'll be explaining what a taxonomy is, how it's different from the EU taxonomy, etc., all through this workshop. So it's going to be a really interesting one, I think, today to discuss this with you. Above all else, we are looking for your feedback. We have some ideas of how we want to go about developing a very, very strong taxonomy to enable this, as I said, experience sharing and knowledge sharing, but we need your feedback. And you're going to learn a lot, I think, today. So looking forward to the discussion, and back to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Hannes. Now, without further ado, we will start our session with an icebreaker session. So I would like to ask you to go to menti.com and use this code to start the session, or you can scan the QR code on your phone, and I will give the floor to Axel to present the session.
Thanks a lot, Tracy, and nice to meet you all. Nice to see as well familiar names within this meeting. I'm going to share my screen, so you got the instruction as well in the chat. As Tracy said, please join using this code at meti.com or by scanning the QR code on the slide. So let's start. I'll give you maybe just 30 seconds to be sure you are on the Menti, and I'm just sharing my screen as well. I hope everyone is on board. I've got 5 people here, more 6, more okay. I hope everyone is on board for starting this icebreaker. We would like to first start by asking what is the first notions that comes to your mind when you think about the circular economy knowledge platforms. So it's a cloud of words, so you are more than open to share your vision and your feedback about circular economy knowledge platforms. Really the first impression that you have in mind. So we've got efficiency, hub, communities, mega ontology, shared intelligence as well, resources, value, cacophony as well. Great to get as well, like if I could say like more nuanced and negative feedback as well. Knowledge network as well. Tools, learning. Okay, we can see that we've got as well blah blah blah. Okay, some good and as well like less positive vibes as well. But the key if I can see here from the screen, so the key word that we've got is sharing, of course, but we've got as well interconnections with different notions, and this is exactly what we will discuss today. Thanks for the feedback on these first open questions. I would like next to go more on another questions more about the significant gap in current circular economy knowledge platforms. So you get different answers. You need to click on one. So it could be like lack of real-world case studies, limited user interactions, difficulties in finding relevant content, or lack of connectivity between platforms. Please share your feedback on these really relevant questions to start the discussion with everyone today. So the main answer for now is to get is to lack of connectivity between platforms, which is exactly one of the crucial points of the discussion in this project as well. Okay, so it's definitely where we've got the most answer. It's really the lack of connectivity between platforms. Thanks a lot. The next one. So what do you see as the greatest challenge in sharing circular economy knowledge to your target audience? Is it like inconsistent terminology and concepts? Is it lack of understanding of the target audience need, or really the gaps in sector-specific knowledge? It's really as well linked with the feedback you've mentioned during the first questions, the open questions, like to really be sure like we are consistent in terms of content, in terms of sharing, and as well in terms of get a better idea about the challenges that we are facing on. So, okay, we've got a different split here. There is not like one single answer with a lot of feedback. So we've got mainly a lack of understanding of the target's audience need, which is a crucial point as well that we will discuss during this session. Thanks for your feedback. Another question, how can knowledge platforms be more inclusive to meet the diverse needs of circular economy to your target audience? Is it multilingual resources? Is it like tailored content for different sectors? Is it as well an easy to navigate interfaces? Or is it to get like regular feedback mechanism within the platforms? Please click on the relevant answers according to your opinion. Okay, so the majority here is saying more like tailored content for different sectors and as well easy to navigate interfaces. That's really interesting feedback to get in mind for this discussion today. Thanks a lot for all your feedback. I think it's quite relevant to start with and to get a better idea about the audience now and as well the vision you've got regarding circular economy knowledge platforms. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Axel. And the results have showed that what we are doing can respond to your challenges. So now I would like to ask Sarah to present.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm so happy to see you all here today from different geographical locations. I'm Sara Gabbai, communication expert at the Switch Asia program, but I'm also coordinating these projects together with the GGKP team. Before we jump into a very short introduction of what this project is all about, I think you should also understand a little bit more how we came to conceptualize this initiative. I really would like to put here some emphasis on the fact that in this digital age, it is not only important to make information and knowledge widely available, but also truly accessible in every sense. And many people actually really confuse also these terms or use them interchangeably. This means that this means really that we should create knowledge, you as knowledge hubs as well, that people not only can access, but also can understand and ultimately use effectively. And this in a democratic society implies that this should happen beyond our economic situation, beyond our language divide, physical abilities, literacy levels, and the geographic locations. Unfortunately, I do think that we are not there yet. And that's why our project is also one of the contributions to this issues when it comes to knowledge. So accessible knowledge in this broader sense of understanding matters. It matters because it really helps empower individuals, businesses, policymakers, you name it, to make more informed decisions, whether these decisions can concern their personal health, their economic well-being, or maybe even if a business wants to choose to walk a more sustainable path, that knowledge on, for example, sustainable consumption practices and how they can switch towards these practices will maybe contribute towards the switch. So we do think that knowledge alone without practice brings us not too far. And therefore, one of the biggest aims of this project is really to link better knowledge with practice. And through this practice, through this access to the right knowledge, we hope that stakeholders will also be able to develop new skills, pursue new opportunities, and ultimately drive economic growth more sustainably, because that's where we are all invested in our work. So again, what we witness now when we talk about circular economy knowledge, access and use is really not too much a digital access problem concerning those users that often look for resources and services in your knowledge platforms, but it's more an information divide. As we saw also in the icebreaker session, there is a lack of communication between existing platforms that are continuously sprouting at the speed of light, everywhere in the world. So the knowledge might be there. People might have digital access to it, but why isn't the right knowledge reaching those who would benefit the most from it and would ultimately take action on that? So maybe next slide. We launched this project, personally, I think, to really try to close or narrow some of these gaps. And to do so, we are aiming, our teams have joined forces to really try to develop shared, what Hannes has called circular economy knowledge taxonomy. And he will explain a bit more the definition of this terminology, by involving regional and global circular economy knowledge platforms who are already doing the work, both of the circular economy practitioners and the knowledge management experts. And through this project, we are analyzing their existing infrastructures, their existing website, their existing digital libraries, and we're trying to understand what is working and what could work better. So maybe I will give the floor to Django, our senior knowledge management expert from the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership, and we can skip to the next slide. And Django can perhaps explain a little bit better how the work we're doing at the intersection of knowledge, practice, circular economy practitioners, and knowledge management experts would look like in practice. Django, the floor is to you. Thank you.
So as Sarah introduced, we are facing an incredibly complex challenge here, and the challenge is related to the complexity of circular economy as a concept itself, and which substantially requires a language to define as much as possible the products that are associated with the knowledge we want to offer to target audiences. So the focus here that I want to put is how can we harmonize the complex domain of circular economy products across multiple platforms in a way that can help us connect to each other and can help to connect relevant knowledge products in the circular economy domain with relevant target audience that are interested in them. So this is our approach, is to work on a workflow that will integrate and harmonize what we call the knowledge, circular economy knowledge taxonomy. So a taxonomy that is focused in classifying knowledge products, as also Hannes very clearly defined into the chat. supported by the use of machine learning to automatically classify them and interconnect across multiple libraries, connect these libraries together with a centralized API, application program interface, that will give to each and every platform the chance to pull and push content that is relevant across each other. And finally, the introduction of artificial intelligence, not as a savior of the world in everything, but with a very specific tailored focus. AI as a tool to interact with different target audience using a different domain-specific language, meaning producing results for a policymaker that will eventually be adapted to a policymaker language, and producing results for a young person engaged into transforming the world that will adapt its language to them. And I pass the floor again to Sarah to follow up on this.
Thank you, Django. And we can go to the next slide. I just wanted to spotlight that the embracing of the knowledge taxonomy is open to anyone who's interested in uptaking some or the full aspect of this once it will be created. But we have 5 platforms with whom we are kicking off the initiative. And these are the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, the ASEAN Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, the Coalition in the Latin America and the Caribbean, the Central Asia Climate Information Portal implemented by CAREC, who also will include more circular economy contents within the portal, and the African Circular Economy Network. This is just a pilot. We will have in-depth focus group discussions with these platforms to understand how they understand the circular economy, what are their perspectives, and also how these are being reflected in how they really manage all this vast knowledge that they are uploading into their portals. So again, there is really an interlinkage between the understanding of circular economy perspectives and principles that are uptaken cross-regionally, and also the management behavior of this knowledge and whether it's reaching effectively the targeted audiences or end users of these platforms. We have also representatives of these platforms today joining us, so a warm welcome and thank you so much for being with us. And without further ado, we have Dr. René van Berkel, who is an expert on circular economy for the Switch Asia program, who will basically today explain a bit more about the circular economy contexts and perspectives, including from our Switch Asia experience, because this is just one of the projects that we're doing on the circular economy. So René, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Sarah, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. I would like to basically elaborate on that circular economy means different things to different people, which was clearly also in the icebreaker section. So maybe next slide, please. I think we are to the informed audience. I think it's clear that we're speaking about an evolving green agenda. Sorry, that's one too fast. Where we started with sustainable consumption and production, more from a waste and pollution perspective, than to green economy and growth, more from economic sectors, and then to the circular economy, which is more about an economic transformation that is happening. So next slide, please. I think the problem is that with the circular economy, we are quite clear that we want to change the predominant take, make, use, throw away linear economic model to something which is a take, make, use, recover. And I add there repeat, because it's a perpetually repeating circular economy model. But beyond that sort of concept that is generally accepted, there's a great diversity of interpretations that hamper the implementation, and also, let's face, that drive skepticism. And we can see that with the ABC of circular economy. I won't go in that, but you can also see that there's quite a lot of skepticism growing around the circular economy to oppose the opulent optimism and opportunism that's out there. Next slide, please. So we delve one level deeper, and this is sorry for being a busy slide, but I think there's basically 4 contributing perspectives if you look at it operationally for the circular economy. So on the left-hand side, we see the ecosystem metaphor. So we have to say that we have to adopt principles from nature into the economic system. That's basically the butterfly diagram of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that we have to avoid waste and pollution, and that we have to recycle at the highest level, and we can differentiate between natural materials or renewable materials that can be cycled back into nature, and technical materials that need to be kept in nature. Then we have, of course, the precautionary principle, which was embedded in the 1992 summit in Rio, the first summit, which is basically saying that we have preventative action. We need to take that if there is potential risk. So if you're in doubt on whether something is safe, we should basically avoid this. And the precautionary principle was initially translated in the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. And now we're talking about an extended set of R principles, which maybe the common one is now 9 R principles, which are highlighted here. I will not elaborate on those. So then the third interpretation is more focused on the business models, and saying that you have basically a value hill, which is illustrated at the bottom of the diagram, where if you go from raw materials to manufacturing and then to final product, you add value, and at the end of the use, it falls down and drops back to 0 value. And the issue is about retaining value, is remanufacturing, refurbishment, and recycling options. And the fourth interpretation, and that's maybe more coming out of the International Resources Panel, is saying that we need to basically delink economic development from aggravated environmental impact. So if we see the blue arrow being the economy, then we need to make sure that resource use grows much slower or is decoupled from the economic growth, and pollution, the orange one, is even further reduced. And we need at the same time look at increasing well-being, so doing more products and services with less energy, materials, and water and waste, and for more human well-being in that sense. So next slide, please. So then we have, of course, ISO came in earlier this year with the 59,000 series to provide a little bit more consistency on that. So we have 59004, which is a vocabulary, defines what the circular economy is, and what is vision, principles, and general guidance on how it can be implemented and contribute to sustainable development. Then we have a 59010, which is guidance on transition of business models and value networks. So that provides more guidance of how businesses could implement circular economy. And 59020 is then on measuring and assessing performance. So how can you strictly confirm how much circularity is done there? And we have the new one, which just came out a couple of days ago, which is really dealing then with the transparency and the sustainability of recycled or secondary materials. Next slide, please. So if we look at ISO 5904, it says an economic system that uses a systematic approach to maintain the circular flow of resources by recovery, retaining, or adding to this value while contributing to sustainable development. So the intent is then to minimize the waste, loss, and releases from the economic system. And for that, we basically see a circular process. So define the purpose, mission, and then have strategic priorities as the second one, then implementation, and then the fourth is then monitoring and review. And we do this along circular economy principles, which is basically system thinking. That's what most of us call life cycle thinking. Value creation, so that's adding value and value sharing between the successive stages in the product cycle. Resource management is dealing with the natural resources, tracking, and the ecosystem resilience. If we go to the next slide, then ISO 59004 then has resource management options, 13 resource management options, and I contrasted them with the 9 R's, which I referred to earlier on. And then we basically see that ISO is much broader, includes also sourcing. So local sourcing would be circular economy, cascading, so downgrading it basically, and remine, so recover materials from waste is also considered then as a circular economy resource management option. Next one, please. That shows then that 59010 and 59020. So in terms of the guidance on the transition of business models and value chain networks, it's basically a management system framework where you define goals, then a strategy, create a value network, and then review and integrate. So this is very similar to the kind of thinking which is in the ISO 9000 or ISO 14000 on the environmental management systems. Then on the right-hand side, you see 59020, which is basically measuring and assessing circularity performance, which has basically 3 steps: boundary setting, circularity measurement and data acquisition, and then circularity assessment and reporting. And for those involved in the field, they would recognize immediately a similar approach as life cycle assessment at ISO 14000 or 40. And then in terms of circularity measurement and data, it talks about resource flows measurement, so resource inflows and outflows crossing the economic system, and then circularity indicators, total inflows, total outflows, water, energy, and ratios which could be there. So next slide, please. I think that overall it is useful to think of the circular economy more as a systems perspective on the inflow of resources and the outflows of waste from the economy and their impacts on the state of the planet. So we have resources coming into economy and society, resources, materials, energy, water, but also land and nature coming into the economy and being discharged as waste or wastewater pollution and degraded lands. And these impacted resources and waste have then a planetary impact, which is basically then now what we're talking about: triple planetary crisis, climate change, loss of nature, accumulation of pollution and waste. And they all rooted into, have as a common root source, the increased use of natural resources. So it's then aimed to bring inflows and net outflows as close as possible to zero. Next slide, please. So that brings us to what Switch Asia is looking a little bit at as an operational perspective, and say that basically circular economy is innovation, the red box in products as services, there's a blue box that circulate their natural resources and are scaled by enablers. I think the green one I have highlighted, so natural resources actions are then at the center stage, and then we can improve the sustainable management of natural resources by doing circularity, that is basically closing material cycles by efficiency, so using everything more efficiently, so we use less materials for the same product or service value, and then substitution, that is changing the whole economy to renewables. And that is to innovation, but innovation is not just research and development, it's also system thinking, design thinking, entrepreneurship, and then it could be along the life cycle of products and services, and then enabled is the policy, lifestyles, markets, and appropriate financing. Next slide, please. And so if you take this approach, and I will not elaborate too much on this, but then we basically get an open-ended innovation space where you see as the horizontal bars, you basically get this 3 resource strategies of circularity, efficiency, and substitution. And then on the columns are basically then the different phases in the circular product value chain, where you could see you can do something in the development of products, in operations, in use, end-of-life collection, and in return. And then for each of them, you have a number of actions. So we are not necessarily talking about re-engineering the 9R strategies, but really reinventing production and consumption systems. Next slide, please. So if you look a little bit at the status quo, there is a lot of definitional uncertainty about the circular economy, and this exists, and we have to just face with it. And this is not unlikely to be resolved anytime soon. So people will have different interpretations, but this does not justify to postpone business and policy action. And because the precautionary principle should prevail, and we have real-time business opportunities for business and for society as well. So we can then sort of think that the operational clarity is there on the circular economy, so it's transformative change in use of natural resources, and it's net zero. So next slide would then be my last one. So then if I sum up, then we can say circular economy, many different things. But I think that we need to focus on what's in the middle, the yes. So it's about sustainable management of all natural resources, materials, energy, water, land. And it's about an economic transformation, so doing things differently in the economy as a whole. It is not necessarily most useful to think about it as a recycling economy. In the circular economy, recycling might be the last resort, so we should not just focus on recycle. It is definitely not just sustainable waste management or environment and waste policy. We can see on the right-hand side, it would of course also then add to a responsible business strategy and innovation strategy. And as the Pact for the Future, which was agreed 3 weeks ago in New York, it is now recognized as circular economy is a pathway for delivering sustainable development, particularly SDG 12 and the related other SDGs. So with that, I think I hand over to Hannes. The floor is yours.
For my input. Thank you very much, Renee. And I think this has been actually very interesting because one of the things is it puts into context the simplicity and complexity, if I can put the two words side by side, of circular economy. I mean, what circular economy is trying to achieve is a kind of a simple concept, but there's so much to it that it makes it quite a complex topic to deal with. Now, what we are at is we are at the open discussion session, and this session has the objective to engage with you to talk very specifically around the circular economy knowledge taxonomy. Now, before I go much further, I want to recap with you what a taxonomy means, because I think we should get this right from the very beginning. Because if we're going to talk about it in terms of knowledge, in terms of circular economy, let's get our understanding correct. A taxonomy is, as it's stated here on the screen, a classification system or scheme, and it's how we organize content into groups using this kind of hierarchical approach. Now, what we have here on the screen is an example of a bed taxonomy. Just to make it very simple, what we've done is we've broken a bed up into components. We have said the taxonomy of a bed is made up of bed frames, where there are 3 different sizes: king, double, single, mattresses, headboard. So it's breaking a bed into components that we can use to classify different beds. So, for example, I go into Google and I search a large wooden bed. And what that does, it converts us into, okay, large, king size, wood frame, bed, obviously like this. And we'll find it using that type of taxonomy. And we'll look for beds that have been essentially tagged or classified with king, wood, etc. So what's very important is to understand what we mean by a taxonomy. And what a taxonomy does, it helps us navigate, retrieve, and connect different types of knowledge and better understand the content of that knowledge that we're aiming to classify. So I think I just wanted to get this out there, that we know what we're talking about when it comes to taxonomy. And in our case, we're talking about a knowledge taxonomy. How do we classify different types of knowledge? I'll go to the next slide, because when I use the word taxonomy, and especially circular economy taxonomy, we always get a question: how does this compare with the EU taxonomy, which I'm sure virtually every one of you know about? The EU taxonomy has been set up as a classification system to help companies and investors identify environmentally sustainable economic activities to make sustainable investment decisions. It's very orientated to classifying economic activities. And the way it's made up is it allows you to identify what is your economic activity. So I can be in the hospitality sector if I'm a hotel, but because I do a lot of guided tours through my hotel, I also have another economic activity, which is logistics or transport. So it allows me really to classify everything I do. It's linked with environmental objectives, which says, to what extent does your economic activity meet these environmental objectives? So what it's doing is it's detailing a very specific contribution to the circular economy. That's what the EU taxonomy does. Now, when we talk about a circular economy knowledge taxonomy, this is about knowledge products and about information related to the circular economy. To give you an idea, I am a company and I have identified myself as active in the hospitality sector. I have seen that my contribution towards, let's say, water management is very poor. I want to find knowledge that will help me improve the way my hotel uses and reduces water consumption. And I want to find guides, I want to find case studies on this to help me. That is why I need a knowledge taxonomy. I need to be able to say, I need a technical guide for hotels that will help me manage my water better. And that's the knowledge taxonomy that will help me find the knowledge I need to connect with my economic activity and environmental objective identified through the EU taxonomy. So again, it's a way to find specific information on all aspects of the circular economy. So it's a very important add-on to the EU taxonomy. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm sure there's loads of questions around this, but it's important to go through this first to explain why we need a circular economy knowledge taxonomy and how it compares to the everyday use. So what I want to do is I want to share with you an example of a knowledge taxonomy and how it can be expanded to include the circular economy. So bear with me, I'm just going to share my screen and I'm going to share it with a Canva presentation. So 2 seconds, I actually just need to find my own Canva presentation, one moment. I am, in fact, there are too many screens open. And here we go. So hopefully you can see my screen from now. Yes. What I am sharing here is first and foremost a part of the GGKP knowledge taxonomy. GGKP, as a knowledge broker, uses a taxonomy to classify all of the different knowledge we have related to the green and circular economy. Now, because we're a knowledge broker, we have quite an extensive taxonomy in how we break it up. And I'm showing you the very first part of this taxonomy. So when we have a knowledge product on our database, the first thing we do is we say, is this related to a specific program within GGKP? Is it related to industry or policy? Is it focused on a specific region? For example, here I've said, you know, it could be related to Africa, it could be related to a country in Africa, it could even be related to a state within a country. So we classify knowledge already on a very basic level there. We also classify knowledge according to actors. And what we mean by actors is it a stakeholder? That means is it somebody we're actively working with? Or is it related to a target audience, somebody that we think would be interested by this specific piece of knowledge? Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on those very fundamental taxonomies, just to give you an idea where we start. Now, we go and we add a lot more detail then. We talk about the context of the knowledge product. And the first thing we talk about when we come to the context of the knowledge product is the theme. What is this really about? What theme is it addressing? And I've given an example here of sustainable finance. This knowledge product, let's say it's a technical guidance. And we would say it's a technical guidance related to sustainable finance, and it could be, for example, on digital finance or investments. It's our way of saying what is the specific focus and sub-focus of that knowledge product. Then we classify a knowledge product by its type. So we can say it's a knowledge product, it's a case study, it's a guidance. It could also then be what we call a knowledge approach. It might be a guidance document, but it's more about strategy, how to develop, for example, a circular economy roadmap. Or it could be implementation. I, as a hotel, how can I implement a water management system? So again, we differentiate between different types and then the approach of that particular knowledge. Then we have sectors. This is very important. This knowledge product, is it related to a specific sector? I had talked about hospitality, hotels. A technical guide on water management for hotels would be classified as sector hospitality, hotels. Similarly, it can be under manufacturing or any other type of economic activity, the way the EU taxonomy does it. We have things like scope. That could be, again, more of an internal one, and needs. This is also related to our target audience. For the moment, I'll ignore these because they're very GGKP orientated taxonomy. But just to show you the range of classification we use in the GGKP knowledge taxonomy. Now, we, of course, are talking about the circular economy. So what we want to do today is say that GGKP, as an example, has this vast array of knowledge classification under its knowledge taxonomy. And within that, we want to get into more detail on the circular economy. So the circular economy is put within the taxonomy as a theme, the circular economy. But of course, we want more details around that. I mentioned the word waste management. Where does waste management go as a classifier within this taxonomy? So the next thing I want to show you is a breakdown of an example of how we would look at this circular economy taxonomy. Now, what I've shown you here is a suggestion. It is by no means what we see as the final add-on for the circular economy knowledge taxonomy. This is to kind of get the conversation started. And what we've done as an example is we have shown that the circular economy, to be able to classify knowledge products, and here I want to state that we're not about defining the circular economy. We are about classifying knowledge products on the topic of circular economy. And we have different ways we could do this. And these are all the things that René has talked about. We could talk about life cycle stages in the circular economy. Many of you would already be familiar with this. We talk about extraction, design, production, distribution. There are the principles that René mentioned, the ORs, the refuse, the rethink, the reduce, etc. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier on waste management, like as an activity, something I want to physically do on the ground. We've written this as circularity or resource efficiency activities and how they could be broken up, for example, into waste management or energy management, and how in turn that energy management could be broken into energy efficiency. And energy efficiency for what? Energy efficiency for lighting or compressed air, etc. Now, this I wanted to put on the screen as a challenge. This is where we are at. This is what we want to talk with you about. We want to be able to help people find very specific information on the circular economy, whether I'm a policymaker wanting to develop a roadmap, or I'm a hotel wanting to manage my water within my hotel. How do I find the knowledge product most relevant to me by using a classification system that may or may not use this type of classifying? Now, the next thing I'm going to do before I go any further is I am going to share in the chat a link to this Canva that you see right there on the screen. The reason being is we will want you later on in this discussion to have a go and enter your thoughts and edit here. So I have put into the chat a link to what you're seeing on this screen so that you can start to open it up, go into it, and flick through the different pages you have there. Now, let me explain a few things about this Canva, because you should know how to use it before you start playing with it. You see here on the bottom, I have a number of different pages. To see this, you will have to make sure to click on this thumbnails button that you see on the bottom right of the screen. You also can only edit one of the pages on Canva. That is number 5. So this will be your playground later on in discussion for you to go and edit. You can, however, view everything else that you see here. So feel free to go in and have a look around. Feel free to investigate this editable taxonomies, where I'll be asking you to make comments and edits as you wish. But while you climatize yourself with that, I will continue a little bit because I want to talk about use cases. So again, the idea of a taxonomy, a knowledge taxonomy, is to help us classify knowledge products better so that different types of target audiences can find what they're looking for based on their needs. And a few examples here is you could have a consumer wanting to reduce their food waste, a hotel, I had mentioned water management, but in this case, they want to reduce chemical-based cleaners, an SME wanting to reduce material waste, a policymaker wanting to develop a circular economy roadmap, a researcher. Again, there's many, many different types of people that want to use or access knowledge in different ways. And they're all going to come in with a different perspective. And again, this is why I want to show a few different examples of how one might be able to classify knowledge to be able to make it accessible to different types of target audiences. So the first one I'm going to show here is a researcher. Now, again, what I've done is I've reduced down our classic taxonomy into one that would be how we would tag something for a researcher. This is the researcher wanting to study case studies on reducing hazardous waste in production facilities from different countries in Latin America. So the first thing we would need is we would need to be tagging a knowledge products by Latin America. So that researcher only finds stuff related to Latin America. This knowledge product should be tagged for target audience, a researcher type person. Under the circular economy, this is where it gets a little bit complicated, so I'll skip that for a second. Under knowledge types, we have up here case studies, so we would select case studies, and it's about hazardous waste in production facilities. So that case study should have an implementation approach, not a strategic approach, but showing examples of implementation. And the sector of activity, the economic sector of activity that's used in the EU taxonomy would be manufacturing. So under circular economy, if you remember the different ones I had shown earlier, would we, under the it says phases here, this should be life cycle stages. We could, in theory, tag it as production. Under the principles, and apologies because there's a mistake here between the titles. Under principles, we could tag it as reduce. Under the activities, resource efficiency activities, we could tag it as waste management, and a sub-waste management, hazardous waste. So these are examples of how one could potentially do this tagging or classification for that knowledge product to appear for a researcher wanting this. So that's just to explain how we need to use a taxonomy to find something very specific for a researcher. Now, I will very quickly go to another use case, which is an SME. So for example, here we have an SME wanting to reduce material waste in South Africa. It's a target audience classified as SMEs. They're looking for guidance as a knowledge type. They're manufacturing, but not just manufacturing, focused on textiles. The knowledge approach is more a strategic one, and it's starting out because they're looking for guidance, wanting how to change their company's approach. And under circular economy, we could, for example, say it's a resource efficiency action about waste management, or a principle called reduce. So this is just to give you ideas of how we need to have a classification system to target different types of target audiences. Now, I want to stop talking here. I want to come back to this view here, which is our example of a circular economy knowledge taxonomy, one that we do not believe is the final one by any means. In fact, it's just a collation of different ideas. And the first thing we want to do now, before we get into loads of Q's and A's, because I think there'll be a lot of questions coming on this, is I want to put up a Zoom poll, if I can. Now, it's going to take a minute for us to do that. Now, the Zoom poll is going to ask you for one question. Do you think that we should classify circular economy knowledge taxonomy by specific circularity resource efficiency activities, like you have, sorry, because you see the poll here, like you have here? Should we classify it by lifestyle choices, stages, apologies, or circular economy principles, or all of them, or none of them? So it would be very interesting to get your feedback. You should at this stage see the poll on your screen, and there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, we're looking for your first impressions, and I fully understand that many of you have even questions saying, I want to understand this better or more clarity. So we're really just looking for your first ideas, initial feedback to give us an idea. And it's already interesting. We have 14, 15 of you already answering, and I see that life cycle stages are coming out strong, but also none of these. I'm glad to see that some people disagree with what we have here. Very important that if you don't like what we have up on the screen, that you say that, because again, this is just the start of a thought process to help us figure out in what direction should a circular economy focused knowledge taxonomy be going. So it's not that you have to choose any one of these. You can choose them all or none of them. So I see that we're about halfway through the participants. I'll give it another minute just to see. And just so you know, I'm happy to see that some people are saying none of these, because we want to see what kind of ideas you have yourself, what kind of suggestions you have. So let me see, we're at 29. I'll just give it another 5 or 10 seconds because I see that people are still answering. Okay, now what I will do while I wait for the last answers to come in, I'm also very quickly looking through the chat because I've seen a lot of questions have been coming in on the chat. Very good, very good. I love seeing loads of questions come in. And I see questions around quality. I see questions on the use of ontology, indeed. And I will, yes, I see people saying that they have not chosen any of them. That's very good. Okay, very good, very good. Okay, I'm going to, we can end the poll, yes, and we can share the results. And what's interesting is that half of the people that answered said that life cycle stages would be their #1 way of classifying, yet a good 30% of you also said none of these. So at this stage, what I'm going to do is open this up to the audience. And first and foremost, those people that answered none of these, could I ask what you would suggest instead? So at this stage, I'd love to see at least 9 hands going up. 9 of you said none of these. So what I would love to see is if I can see hands going up from the 9 of you who would and hear what you would like to suggest other than the 3 options we have there. So please let me see the hands appear, and I will unmute you so that you can speak up and give your suggestions. So I'm not seeing any hands here yet, even though 9 of you did answer this. So please, hands going up. Do we have anybody yet? Yes, we do.
Can you maybe, is it a chance to show the survey questions under discussion on screen?
Yes, sorry, I just realized that the share results had not been showing. You should now see the results on your screen. Okay, so the first person who had raised their hand was Jack. Jack, would you like to come in and explain why you chose none of these and what you would suggest instead?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
And yes, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. So firstly, yeah, really support this initiative. I think it's a brilliant idea. And if it's done well, I think it could be really valuable. Why did I select none of them? I wasn't intending to say none of these are valuable. What I was trying to say, and I think what others have kind of supported, is that you can have multiple meta tags on the same knowledge product. So that would be depending on how people perceive how they want to find that knowledge product, they use that tag to find it. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. It wasn't actually none of them, it was actually all of them.
Very good point, Jack. And I suppose what we should have done is we should have allowed multiple choices so that you could have picked all 3 of them, but that's a very good point. So essentially what you're saying is we need a mix of these that could be applied at different stages. So thank you very much. I'm eager to see more people. I see that Alice, you have raised your hand as well. Let me quickly unmute you, and you should be able to speak now.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted just to jump back on what Jack said. I agree with him. Actually, I wanted to put all of them, but the option was not there because I believe that the system needs to reflect various aspects of the circular economy practices, strategies, and also principle, and not only as it was presented in the poll.
Thank you, Alice. That's okay. That's good to hear. Now, this is interesting because now we're at the stage where we're saying we should have all of them. What would be nice to hear from the audience is also if you can think of anything else we should add, or how we would use combinations of these, because again, some of these duplicate each other. I mean, we can, for example, reduce and waste management could be seen as similar. So we'd like to hear your thoughts as well and how these could be maybe used in particular instances. For this, please do go to the editable page, which is page 5, and put in your comments. Just so you know, to put in a comment, it is a simple case of clicking on the item and clicking comment, or you can actually move them around and directly add new things if you so wish. So do go to this editable taxonomy. I'll go to the page again, pick whichever one you want and play with it, put in your comments. It's a great opportunity. But in the meantime, I have a raised hand from Harry. Harry, would you like to jump in? And you can, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Hannes. We meet again after some time online. I have the discussion we are having now is how we can have multiple choices. I think that is another important consideration for the taxonomy as well as here there are pieces of information that will not fit into one box. It will fit into one box 50%, another box 50%, or in other cases, it will fit into multiple boxes. In many cases, it will not fall anywhere. You will not have a box to put the information. So having that flexibility in categorization, usually we see the rigid classification or taxonomy always as yes, no. It is black and white. It is here or not here, which is not the real world case many times. It is sometimes it is what is yes, no. The rigid one is called the bounded set. It is inside or it is outside. Usually you have the centered set where a particular value, how close it is to the center. It may be very close to the real intention of that box, explanation of the box, or it may slightly fit. That is a thing which I said. It may fall here, 50% in this box, 50% in another box. But since we are talking about AI, it is good to have a layer of fuzzy set, like it could be anywhere in the classification system. Some way of representing that could be easier. So the search function, ultimately we will be using, users will be using some kind of search to go and some kind of navigation to go and search this information. That search function will bring out those linkages where it all comes in together in a better way. So just a very fussy idea also from my side for thought. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Ari. And I think you raise an important question in that sometimes you need, like, as you said, half and half or something like this. What I'd like to do is actually bring up 2 points here. One, this knowledge taxonomy that we're trying to bring together here to, again, in relation to circular economy, we're trying to make it a common taxonomy that any knowledge platform anywhere in the world can use. Now, why is this important? Because we want to be able to exchange automatically knowledge resources or products between platforms. So there's a technological reason for this as well. If we all agree that we should classify certain types of knowledge for certain types of target audiences in this type of way, it makes it much easier for us to actually share knowledge products between us automatically and apply artificial intelligence to help us make them more accessible to different types of end users, etc. So I do want to reiterate, the idea is to make this a common knowledge taxonomy that anybody can use to help actually also not just the accessibility of the knowledge, making it easier to find or search, but also to share between knowledge platforms. But I think we're hitting an important point here, which is how target audience or a specific type of target audience might play a role in which one of these types of classification systems we should use. And I think at this stage, what I'd like to do is bring in my colleague Jian Gu, who has done a lot of work in this area, to speak maybe a little bit about target audiences and how they actually will help guide us in this classification system. But Django, before you say anything, I do want to mention one other important thing, because when we've been talking about the different circular economy taxonomies, the naming structure we have here, life cycle stages, circular economy principles, circularity, resource efficiency activities, also are just us putting some kind of title for the moment. I've noticed Rene also making the important point that we should be thinking about a better wording or more correct wording of this. Please do also, in the editable taxonomy sheet, put in your suggestions of how we can use better ways to describe those groups of classification systems as well. None of this is set in stone. This is all just to help us start the thinking process. So please feel free to edit from top to bottom. But let me jump to Django to come in and talk a little bit about target audiences and how they can help us with this as well in the way we tag.
Thank you, Hannes. And I'm really impressed by how rich the conversation is coming out. So when a year ago, roughly, we initiated the very embryo of this work, focusing in particular on one of the knowledge hub of GGKP, Jeff Island, we realized very quickly that there was, on one side, an issue of classification based on definitions, as it is already coming out from the conversation. Yes, we do need to clarify definition of terms. We do need to back up our taxonomy, at least with a basic ontology and common understanding of this terminology. But on the other hand, what we realized is that we were entirely missing from this process the people, the very people we are trying to reach. And when I'm talking about the very people, in fact, I'm not talking about like we are used to think in the case of stakeholder government entities, which are very broad entities. We are talking about target audience. We are talking about the actual person we expect to search, interact, discover, and ultimately learn from the knowledge product we deliver. Because the ultimate goal of delivering knowledge products tailored to our target audience is to make them learn something that will trigger a transformation, a change in the direction, in this case, of circular and green economy. So we were missing this important piece in the classification. And then we started to investigate further who are these people, what are the target audience. So in the first experiment we made, we ended up with, for example, 4 major categories with one of our platform, including the policymakers, business and recyclers, young people, and just interested people. Now, what happens here? How this classification of the target audience affects the actual taxonomy we want to use to classify knowledge products, and how the taxonomy we choose then will affect artificial intelligence performances in delivering the right products to the right target audience. This is a crucial point. In fact, the knowledge base that we have in a platform is a common knowledge base. We do have case studies, we do have analytics, we do have tools, and different target audience tries to reach this knowledge base. Now, the point is that if I want to present a case studies as a result to a policymaker that is interested in introducing a policy change in waste management, the way I have to speak with this audience is entirely different than if I want to present the same case study to a young person that is passionate about changing the way its community interact with waste. The case study is exactly the same, and the taxonomy has supported me in retrieving it in both scenarios. And artificial intelligence has to help me in adjusting what is in this case study to these 2 different target audience in a way to make it understandable as much as possible to both of them. So that's where we are. That's when we realize that introducing target audience as part of the entire taxonomy system, and furthermore as part of the ontological system that we will develop in the future, is a fundamental requirement to make this interlinkage between what we deliver to whom and what is the right language to adopt to make these people interact.
Thank you very much, Django. And I think based on what you've been saying there and some really interesting comments that have been coming in on the chat, one, I think everybody can now understand our challenge. This is not exactly the simplest task to deal with, which is why we want to go through it with you like this. I would love to get a few more people to share their experiences, but I just want to take the opportunity to let everybody know that this is not a once-off conversation we're having with you. This is essentially the starting point of a long conversation. We are going to have more workshops to discuss this, but most importantly, we also have a community of practice set up where this can continue on an ongoing basis from literally today onwards. Now, we will share in the chat a link to the community of practice, which is hosted on our Green Forum. It's a bit like LinkedIn. And on this community of practice, you will be able to share more of your ideas and more of your thoughts following this workshop. We really would love to keep the conversation going with you. I think it's not one that we can just stop after a few minutes. Definitely lots more feedback to get from you. So please know that there really is an opportunity to continue this straight away after the workshop over the coming weeks and months. So you will get that link in the chat very soon, and really would recommend you join that group and continue to share. However, in the meantime, I have seen a comment come in on the chat from Shadow Chen. Would you like to come in quickly? You have spoken about knowledge, sector-specific knowledge. Would you like to share your experience on this? Because it's a hotly disputed topic, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this if you would like to jump in and share with us your experience.
Okay, thank you, Hannes. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Again, I really appreciate this initiatives because building a knowledge hub was like what we have been thinking about and changed several times since the first day we started this organization, and we want to be the knowledge hub in Taiwan. So actually, in our database, we changed several times. So what you have mentioned, sectors, stakeholders, circular economy strategies, and regions. And these things we have been shuffled so many times. And so I would like to share a little bit of our experience and then what I, throughout these years, and we do found out that the sector knowledge is the most critical to stakeholders, particularly to the industrial stakeholders, because always we share about circular economy and they ask, okay, what about our sector? And because then we realize that there are different policy drivers, different product natures, for instance, textiles and electronics, they're just so different, and plastic. So they have very different nature. And then so thus they have different policy drivers, and then the consumer behavior is also quite different. And I think in this questionnaire, you mentioned about like what you would like to have like the main category of the knowledge. And I do agree with, I think, a comment from Renee that across different strategies and can inspire different stakeholders across industry. And I do agree. But in our experience, it's mostly through facilitation that it will be more effective. Yeah. So we do have like a case study of all the different circular economy examples, and we have tags that you can choose regions, you can choose sectors, and you can choose circular economy strategies. So then if they are really specific, then they can be actually quite hopefully to find what they want to see more effectively. But if they're just exploring that they can have like these selection more wider. So I think that's why I proposed I think in my big experience, then it's like sector information would be like the main categories, and then you can add more tags. I think then it can be a good starting point. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Shadow. And I think one thing I would like to just spend a minute on the idea of sectors, because we have seen it ourselves within GGKP and we've seen it elsewhere. Very often there is a misunderstanding between sectors and what we call themes. Now, when we talk about sectors, we talk a little bit, we align ourselves very much with the EU taxonomy. It's the economic activity, the sector of activity. So for example, what we show under sectors here, for example, hospitality and manufacturing, is the sector of activity to which this knowledge product is applicable. And I had mentioned before, I'm a hotel, so I'm in the hospitality sector or economic activity, and I'm interested in a case study for hotels. So the case study and hotels would be tagged. So it's a case study for hotels, which is linked to the sector of activity, hospitality. We wouldn't put, for example, over here, a case study on water management as the theme. So water management for us would not be a theme. It would be a sub-theme of circular economy somewhere down here. But a lot of people would say water is the sector or water is the theme, and we would put it much lower down to be much more scientific about our classification when it comes to sectors. So we notice a lot of people mix this up, and I think it's an important one to keep in mind, well, for example, how we go about it in terms of the knowledge taxonomy. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to do two things in parallel. One, I see that Zenaida has her hand up since a little while. And while Zenaida comes in with her comment, I would also ask Tracy if we can put up the next Zoom poll, which is about challenges. I think it's a good point to get a little bit of information on the challenges you see in relation to a knowledge taxonomy. So I'll do both in parallel. Zenaida, if you don't mind, I will let you speak while people are also clicking the buttons on the Zoom poll, if that's okay.
Sure, though mine were not comments, but rather questions, and one of them are technical. When you launch the poll, I see the results there. Is it anything I need to do in order to see the questions rather than results? I'm not sure if it's my problem.
Unfortunately, as a co-host, you
got it. No worries. Then probably while colleagues are looking at the questions, I put a question to you, Hannes, and also to Django. Well, my non-so-technical mind struggles with a question. Once we, in our minds, in our brains, as analysts and development specialists, are able to connect rather easily different components which result in the practice which we, with confidence, let's say, call circular economy practice, how will it be done through the tagging system? Sorry for rambling, but I'm not quite sure how to specifically formulate my question. But let's say if a particular piece of material, say a case study, is tagged by the colleagues with confidence, let's say a resource efficiency and water, how does it how it is being then picked up by AI or by us as anything which would be classified as circular economy, or vice versa, if some practice is attributed to the area or which impacting supply chain, how does that eventually would be classified as a circular economy portrayed area? In other words, circular economy is an aggregate of certain characteristics of a material, of a knowledge piece, knowledge product, whatever it is. At what point it becomes under the tag circular economy? What is the minimum set of characteristics of that? And our earlier discussion is very interesting because clearly it says that it needs to be 2 or 3 different characteristics together for it to become a circular economy practice. This is one question which for me is most intriguing. The second question is an area of a scale and scope in terms of volume and timeline. If a company, let's say, portray itself as a circular economy in practice, but does one let's say project under its umbrella, or have done a particular project, let's say 2 years ago, and never came back to that. So do we call it circular practice, yes or no? I know it goes beyond discussion on on taxonomy, and certainly it's our first discussion, but and we are going to discuss it within the community of practice, which you which you shared, and some other webinars. But what's the technical thinking behind that? If you and Rango just give us a bit of a brain dump on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm very happy you asked this question, Zenaida, because it shows how complex this is, because we need to do something very complicated to make it simple for people, essentially. Now, let's put it this way. How do I know if it fits on the circular economy? Let's start with that particular question. One, I suppose this will come down to how we eventually define our thinking around knowledge product classification on the circular economy. So first and foremost, before we give advice to people, you will know if it's on the circular economy for this reason. We first of all, on a technical level, need to get this classification system right. And if we get this classification system right, we will be able to honestly, very easily give indications if a knowledge product fits on the circular economy or not. What do I mean by that? Let's say life cycle stages, which will highly likely not be the name of this group if it is included. Let's say that does exist, and the knowledge product comes in, and it's a very, very long knowledge document that covers everything about the economy of a country. And in it, you get the impression it has something to do with the circular economy because it talks about sustainability. Ultimately, you would be able to, using these key terms here, get AI to see, does it talk about, for example, extraction? Does it talk about design? Does it talk about production, distribution, etc.? And then the question is, yes, it does. Now, that extraction, does it talk about it in relation to one of these principles? So is there a principle that says reduce extraction? And the AI will say, yes, it says reduce extraction in this document. Now, I'm deliberately using the word AI because there's a scanning of a document that could do this. And by using layers of these keywords, you can say, yes, this document is actually related to the circular economy, even though it talks about the economy as a whole. And in fact, what that could mean is the knowledge product is tagged as circular economy, extraction, reduces, but also about the informal economy and sustainable finance in relation to government incentives, because it's a large document all around the economy. So if you have this classification system set up, you essentially have the steps by which you can determine where that document fits in, because you can say, does it meet one of these high-level, let's say, classifications? Does it then meet one of these sub-level classifications? Does it then meet one of these sub-level classifications? And that gives you the answer. Now, it's a process to follow. And this is obviously why we want to use AI to help us classify, because they can do that much quicker for us, rather than us having to read the entire document, search for the word extraction, etc. So that's the technical approach to doing it. Obviously, out of this, you can also develop simple guidelines that say a document should have this basic terminology in it for it to fall under the classification of a circular economy. But we would develop that after we get this classification defined.
So in other words, Hannes, in other words, to teach, quote unquote, teach the AI system a combination of tags, which would constitute direction towards circular economy, let's say. Well, the experts would need to have certain formula, right? This is what you call the training of the AI. Is it correct?
Yes, and I'm seeing my colleague Jack nodding his head a lot, and I think he'd like to add a few words.
Okay, all right, okay, please.
Yes, Zenaida, thank you very much, because this question is so relevant, and Hannes explained it very well. So I will add only one thing, is that what we expect is that experts will be empowered by a centralized system in which machine learning and AI are present to dialogue with this classification, meaning that the classification won't be a static piece that will be assigned any time in the same way, but will adapt based on the feedback that experts provide every time that a classification is associated with a knowledge product, and every time that users discover rightly or wrongly this knowledge product. Next.
So in other words, sorry, just to clarify, once the system is ready and functional, we would need nevertheless two very essential components, that the person who releases, so to speak, the document, well, tags and releases the document would still need to be the one who would verify the circularity affiliation or circularity relations of the document on the advice of AI. Is it a system? And also the second one, does it mean that we would really have to have this conversation across our platforms, which we nevertheless already planned, so that we would have some kind of not uniform, but nevertheless understanding of how do we think about circular economy and what are the differences in our understanding. So which becomes quite an important journey for the future, isn't it? So
Zenaida, if I can jump in on this, because I do realize we're running very short of time and you're bringing in very, very important questions. To kind of answer you, but not fully answer you, one, I would say, I think we got a very interesting result back from the poll, which shows that the majority of people say we need to balance more specific information with general information. And I think this comes back to you as well. How can we get the concept, the way people view circular economy, how can we match that with very specific classification systems? So I think that's an interesting output from the poll. Also, I think your questions have given us a great way to continue this conversation actually on the community of practice that I'm going to share literally just now, again, the link in the chat, because I think so much has come up, and your last questions are really emphasizing the complexity of what we're trying to deal with and how we need to get this down to a very, very simple approach. So what I'm going to suggest is we take this question and bring it into that community of practice as a starting point to continue the discussion. Otherwise, Zenaida, I think I'd like to hand back to you, in fact, at this stage to maybe do a little wrap up of this session, because we've 2 minutes left. And I think between the two of us, we should give our last thoughts and also reminders to everybody to keep this conversation going, because we've lots of feedback yet to get through.
Absolutely. And as always, with a rich conversation and so interesting discussion goes on still in the chat, and so many interesting aspects being brought to forth. Thank you very much. It really is a good, successful event, a short ones for the topic, which indeed ends up with more questions than answers. This is fantastic, and which would constitute indeed the topics for our next conversation. And the next conversation would really need to be on the topics of relations between the knowledge management persons who are doing the background work on classifying the resources, and knowledge experts which are facilitating the development of knowledge products as the need dictates by our users. But let me just maybe remind us a few points which were highlights for me. So we started the event addressing critical issue why the right projects fail to reach the right people in the area of circular economy. And one of the key reasons identified was the challenge of communicating and harmonizing knowledge across different platforms. So in fact, this is the reason why our experts from two teams, Switch Asia and JJKP, began this conversation with you today. And this is hopefully the reason why you will be continuing this conversation with the two teams. And major focus there was also today the role of AI in this process, as there is a hope to train AI system to understand circular economy, not just recycling economy, as René told us, but as a holistic, systematic approach to sustainable resource use for economic transformation. And discussion for me on target audiences highlighted two key issues, which is very interesting: classification and classification of knowledge and the users of knowledge. And it became clear that the language and information needs for different users vary depending on the questions at different circumstances. The same user group can be interested in different types of knowledge at different times, and also how the classification systems influences success of communication with these users. Additionally, even what we said, some individuals may require different types of information. It depends on specific questions they're addressing, right? So the conversation emphasizes the importance of tailoring communication, knowledge sharing to fit the diverse needs. So I would like maybe, Hannes, to invite you to complement that. But from our side, it is, of course, in addition to the thanks, it's invitation to become part of this community, which is to share what individual little and big discoveries which have we have made in our areas of work, so that we are not repeating the same mistakes and really progressing much more rapidly than we ever could individually. Very interesting reflections from the colleagues from Taiwan. Very interesting online references to the ontology of circular economy. So all of this is a charting huge and interesting and very challenging way forward. This last word, Hannes, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Zenaida, and I think you have brought it all together very well. I would like to, because I know a few people have asked about next steps. Very important, please join the community of practice, because this is a project we're working on over the next few months. There's going to be different iterations of this, what we call common circular economy knowledge taxonomy, that we will want to share with you, get your feedback on to finalize this over the coming months. We will be having also more workshops. We have at least another 3 planned to go through the progress of the project with you. So you will be getting that as well. And most importantly, at the end of this, we will be inviting you and your platform to join what we call a digital network of knowledge libraries, where you will have the opportunity to connect with us and other knowledge libraries through what's called API, application programming interfaces, where we will help you connect your knowledge to ours and to others and utilize AI to make it more accessible and to help classify it. So it's not just about getting the taxonomy, it is actually also about giving you the opportunity to join a whole new digital network with your knowledge platform as well into 2025. So it's the beginning of a very, very interesting journey altogether. We've thrown a lot of information at you today. So I do, again, just want to say, please join the community of practice, because it's where we can have longer conversations and more discussion on this. As well, of course, you will soon be receiving the next invite to the next workshop. So consider this the first step on a very, very interesting journey together that we're looking forward to experiencing with you. With that, I think we better wrap up. We're already well over time. Thank you all so very much for joining. It has been extraordinarily interesting, and we look forward to lots more interesting discussions going forward.
Thank you, colleagues. And results and the video are going to be shared with you all. Yes, that was a question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All the very best. Goodbye and thank you.
Bye, colleagues. Bye-bye. See you soon.